There's this ancient story about making bricks. So the workers labored in the hot sun every day, mixing mud, water, and straw to meet the brick quota. And the workers asked for a time of rest. So basically, a couple days of vacation. And the king said, "Pfft, these lazy workers, I'm going to show them." And so he took away the straw but still required the workers to meet the brick quota and quality. Essentially, the workers had to maximize and meet production levels without the necessary resources. And so I'm wondering, how often have you been in this situation where someone leaves and you get all or a portion of their work, or someone on your team leaves and you aren't approved to replace them, and all the overwork and the exhaustion that follows that ends up killing your productivity and robbing you of joy? So today on the Joyosity podcast, we are going to be talking about why we are having this happen at this point in history, why joy should be your key performance indicator, and 3 ways you can cultivate joy and start creating change. So, welcome to the Joyosity podcast. I'm so glad you're joining us. Whether you are a seasoned leader or you're just starting out, Joyosity is the community for you. So if you're new to Joyosity, or just as a helpful reminder, we base all of our work at the Joyosity podcast on 3 bedrock beliefs. 1, true leadership requires more than just surface level strategies. It requires a profound commitment and connection to everything that makes us human. 2, we use genuine curiosity so we can create positive culture with all those complex people that you work with, because that's all you got. And 3, joy is the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. So we're putting joy and fun at the center of everything that we do. So every week, we're going to bring you dynamic conversations and experts and leaders sharing not just a couple tips and tricks, but really equipping you to build a movement with you based on hard-won wisdom, real life experiences, and leading research. So I'm Jen Whitmer, international speaker, leadership consultant, and all around joy bringer, hosting you and guiding us along the way. So get your pens and papers ready for today. I've got some great things to share with you, a little bit of meaty research, and some action items for you. So if you've got your multiple beverages, I've got mine today. Let's dive in. So it is unlikely that you are making bricks. So, I mean, if you're here live, tell me in the comments if you're making bricks. I doubt that you are. But it is likely that you are in a corporate culture or an organizational culture that's been influenced by Milton Friedman, that makes it feel like you're making bricks without straw. So, if you don't know who that is, let's say you have opened the September 13th issue of the New York Times Magazine in 1970. You would have seen the Nobel Prize winning economist essay that argued that the central purpose of a business is to maximize shareholder value, and that business had no other social responsibility. So, for the last 55 years, we have seen the negative impact of that argument on workers, employees, families, and communities. Friedman's premise shifted the role of the leader to incentivize downsizing, cost cutting, and short term financial gains, rather than considering the long term investments of the worker, the customer, and the community that ultimately create more profit. And CEOs and other leaders have been paid obscenely for that shift. According to the Economic Policy Institute, from 1978 to 2023, top CEO compensation increased 1,085%. Yes, 1,085%, compared with a 24% increase in the typical worker compensation. That's the impact. And in 2023, CEOs were paid 290 times more than the typical worker. In 1965, before the essay, they were paid 21 times more than the typical worker. So, of course, they're incentivized to do all of this cost cutting. And part of that resource cutting has meant less training for leaders on how to manage the humans that you work with as humans. So, all the things that make work difficult, communication, workload, purpose, time off, matching skills to roles, a proper amount of people to do the work, those are all under the control of the direct manager. And in fact, the direct leader has more impact on the mental health of employees than your doctor or your therapist. And in 1990, 20 years after Friedman's essay, 30 to 40% of workers reported workplace anxiety. That's still a third and a significant amount. But currently, as of the latest research in 2024, 83% of American workers experience significant workplace anxiety. And so much so that that stress impacts their life outside of work, every other relationship, their spouse, their kids, their family, their communities. This building bricks without straw is costing all of us. And so that's how we got here. So we need to shift away from the sole social responsibility is to shareholder profit and make joy the key performance indicator in your business. And that is going to be profitable to you. So why joy? So we hear a lot about employee engagement, increasing productivity. But engagement doesn't have a lot of meat to it. Engagement is the lagging indicator of joy at work. So basically, employee engagement is the symptom of joy at work, not its cause. And research shows that when joy is the center of your work, here's what this does for you as the leader, but also the rest of your team. You are 31% more productive, and your team performance increases by 25%. So we got here because we shifted away from understanding the long-term impact on workers and only thinking about shareholders. And so the way we get out is by putting joy back at the center. That joy as the heartbeat of an organization and of a healthy leader means you actually get what you want in the profit. And we no longer will have this in such intense increase of workplace anxiety. So, I got to get to a how. I do love a good history story, but here are 3 ways that as we start this year, you can begin to cultivate joy as the center of your work. So, I was sitting actually right here at this desk with my son right here. He's not here now. You're imagining him. A couple summers ago, and he was helping me send out my weekly newsletter that's now called the Jolt of Joyosity. And he was learning how to put it into the email system. So I write and he's doing that. And so we're working on this process, and he was getting a little frustrated because it wasn't super quick. And I paused for a second and told him a story that I had heard from a client. So a client had used one of the resources in my newsletter. And she said, here's what happened. She started describing the difference that it made for her team, just this one little resource, and how that had then impacted their work with a client that they ended up earning this big account. And so it made such a difference in their team. She had reached out to me. And so I was telling my son Chase this story because the work that he was doing had incredible purpose. It wasn't just putting words into Active Campaign, which is the email system. It had a deeper impact on real people. So, one of the first things that you can do to cultivate joy at work is understand the purpose of your work. We as humans naturally want purpose. As I say that, you just intrinsically know that you want purpose of some kind. And the opposite of joy isn't work. The opposite of joy is meaningless work that we call toil. So you as a leader have to understand the deeper meaning and purpose of your work in order to also help the people around you understand the deeper meaning and purpose to your work. That starts to create a bigger understanding and a bigger vision of the meaning, what could be feel like meaningless tasks. But once we connected, oh, the purpose of putting this email in this exact way so it gets opened is so that people read it. So then they use the tool that it has an impact on them. Like, do you see the connection? So whatever that is for you, you have to understand the deeper meaning and purpose of your work and connect it to your daily tasks. So, the second thing that you do is know where you contribute the best and where your weaknesses are, and then help learn the same about your employees. One of the indicators of joy at work, one of the ratios that as I've been researching for my book that I continually find is that when you spend 35% of your time in work that is meaningful, in your place of joy, it fits your personality, it matches your skills, and you have the resources to manage it, meaning time, tools, etc. When you spend 35% of your time in that kind of work, that is what it takes to experience joy at work. And only 10% of your time in work that feels like toil. Because here's the thing, there will always be work that feels like toil. um, but when you understand what feels like joy to you, then and what feels like joy to others, that's how you start to manage and create a workplace that feels like joy. So, for example, I do not love record keeping. It is not my favorite thing, but when you own a business, particularly an S corp like I do, you have to have very particular bookkeeping. And that is like toil to me. Not only am I not personality wise matched really well for that, it is not in my skill set, even though I have 3 master's degrees and think none of them have to do with that particular skill set of bookkeeping, finances, CPA, none of that. It doesn't, and I don't really have not only the skill set resources, the time that it takes because I don't have those skill sets is so much more. So I'm not well resourced for it. So when I was spending well more than 10% of my time in that kind of work, I knew something needed to change. Now, I, as a solopreneur, need to go and outsource that. So now I have my amazing Robinson Management Group, and they do my bookkeeping for me. And they take so much less time than I would take to do it. It is so worth that. But it is their joy. That's the stuff they love to do. When I send my email to Madison, she's like, this is great. It is because her joy is different than mine. That is why the second thing to cultivating joy at work is knowing where you contribute best and where your weaknesses are. That's how you start to understand how to get that 35% ratio, because there's always something that you don't want to do. I love it. Scott was like, CPA was my first hire. Yeah, absolutely. These are the things that you have to learn how to do, where your skill set lies and where it isn't. There are some things where your weaknesses lie that you can improve. You can improve your communication. You can improve how you handle hard conversations. You can improve how you measure and set up your day. Those are skills that you can take and make better. There are some things that you need to change on your team and make sure that what your team is doing matches their skills and where their strengths and weaknesses are. That's why I love using the Enneagram and play personalities to make sure I understand that about myself and my team. And those are resources that I offer when I come into organizations to help them figure that out as well, because ultimately that's what's going to make you more productive. So cultivating joy at work is productivity is another outcome of joy. not the thing that you focus on. It actually is what makes you more productive, is when you understand that. And the third thing to cultivating more joy at work is knowing your people. Because I follow Simon Sinek and adore his work, I get a lot of this one particular reel of Simon's where he talks about, do you know the name of the significant other of the people on your team? And that idea is that knowing the details and knowing your people matters to create joy at work. We were not meant to work in a vacuum. There is very little work that I can think of that anybody does entirely on their own. Almost always, work is a group project. And so when you understand the purpose, two, you know where you contribute the best and where your weaknesses are. And then you know your people as humans. You create this type of trust and connection. And it's not just like, oh, I check the box. I know their significant other's names and the name of their pet. It is that you truly know them and understand where they're coming from, their perspective, what they contribute by their sheer life experience, not only what's on their resume. So, knowing people as true humans, that you connect with them, that connection, those people power skills that you need to build connection, that cultivates joy at work. So, those people power skills that you need in creating connection include communication skills, creativity, critical thinking, and there are more. But those are the types of things that when you create trust and connection, you're listening to others, they're feeling heard, they're feeling seen, they understand purpose. The level of joy getting to that 35% to 10% ratio becomes so much easier. And you feel the difference. I mean, can't you just think about a time when you were like, I feel like a checkbox on your to-do list and not somebody who is building relationships? I have a client that I am potentially working with, and I was asking a little bit about how they put life together and how they put their teams together. And one of the reasons I want to work with them is they have a lot of team-based goals, that it's very relational based, it's team based. Those are the type of people that lean very well into creating more joy at work because they already have some of that framework to work with. So when you're talking about creating joy at work, you need to connect with your people. You've got to have real relationships with people and not so they feel like a checkbox on your list. So, as you're thinking about creating joy at work and you're listening to this podcast, so you're like, okay, well, I need a little bit more. Of course you do. There's only so much we can do on, in this format. So, for everyone, one of the ways to help you find more joy at work, I have the Joyosity Explorer map. And you can find that at jenwhitmer.com/Joyosity Explorer, Joyosity-Explorer. And so we'll put it in the show notes. I'll try to see if I can get it on the live in the comments. But if you go to jenwhitmer.com/Joyosity Explorer, it's a map that takes you through a set of exercises that helps you really hone in on the things that bring you joy, the things that drain you joy, and help you take some next steps. And that's a map to help you find that. The next thing that I have to offer may not be for everyone, but it is also a free resource called the Clarity Over Chaos Workshop. And it's only available right now in January of 2025. So if you're listening to this podcast after that, email me at jen@jenwhitmer.com and I'll make sure I can get you something. But right now, I have the Clarity Over Chaos Workshop. And you can find that at jenwhitmer.com/clarity workshop. And it will take you through a real audit of understanding not only where you are doing well right now, but also what are some of the areas you need to work on to create this joy at work. And they're areas such as communication, emotional regulation, understanding your true personality, whether that be your Enneagram personality or other. It helps you know really, am I doing well at that? Or is that something I need to work on? Is that something I should keep continuing and maybe put more resources toward? Or is this something that I need to work on and really develop that skill? Because that's where that number two, knowing where you contribute and where your weaknesses are, really matters. It's hard to do that without some kind of framework. So that's what the Clarity Over Chaos workshop will give you. And that is a tangible way to start creating joy at work. Because when you do that, your anxiety decreases. And if you start to put joy at the center, what happens is that productivity and engagement increase, which ultimately improves your profit. It improves all of those components that we're trying to get to anyway. We just had the wrong thing at the center. And I know Milton Friedman is a Nobel Prize winner. I'm still going to argue that joy needs to be the center of your work. Because here's the funny thing about those bricks without straw. What straw does to a mud brick is make it stronger. Essentially, when the king removed the straw, he made an inferior product by removing the resources for his workers. He made the work meaningless, or at least less meaningful. So let's not repeat that mistake. And I think that's what we've been doing for the last 55 years. Cultivate joy at work. Put it at the center. 1, know your purpose. 2, know where you contribute the best and where your weaknesses are. And 3, know your people. Create connection and trust. This is the way we start to make positive culture by dealing with all of those complex people, because you've got tangible ways to do it. So if you're looking for the Joyosity Explorer map, you can find that. If you're looking for the Clarity Over Chaos workshop, which I highly recommend, you can go to jenwhitmer.com/clarity workshop and find that. Those are tangible ways that you can start today to invest in yourself and in your people to create the joy at work that really matters. So I hope that you can do some of that today, because I know that it's going to build a stronger you and a stronger business all around. So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at jen, with 2 N's, at jenwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.